Abby, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 30 terrifying TikToks. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. Please follow me on Instagram and TikTok where I do spooky special effects makeup over there, and add me on Snapchat where I sometimes vlog my days on my story. And with all that being said, without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikTok is by the user Lexi Steinmark2, and she shows us a creepy crawl space in her basement.
You guys know
I think if the dog doesn't want to go down there, that is definitely telling you something about the space. Unfortunately, I tried to find the part 2 of where someone actually goes in there and investigates, but her account has since been deleted. So it's kind of like a little bit of a cliffhanger we have here. I think for sure it could be just a little bit like people assuming scary things because their house is old. But if they truly do feel some bad vibes and their dog doesn't like going down there, I don't doubt what they physically feel. But on top of that, the thing that I think is really weird is that she said the paint just randomly showed up one day. I don't really know how that happens, unless it's like some kind of a moisture thing, but it doesn't really look like it's watermarks on the rock. It literally looks like paint, and that wouldn't just show up from, you know, moisture being in the air. So unless you have someone like sneaking in from a different entrance and randomly painting it, I don't really know how to explain that one. So definitely there could be something a little weird going on in the crawl space in this basement. Who knows what it was used for all those decades ago? I guess we'll never find out. Our next TikTok's with user Ghost Girl Things, and she shows us things in her haunted house that just make sense. Now from this, you probably recognize her from previous videos. She has shown that photo of serial killers before, which I, in the last video, thought was the creepiest thing in the video, and I still think it is the creepiest thing in this video. And another thing you may recognize is I showed a couple TikToks in either my last video or the video before where she was communicating with ghosts using those fridge magnets. So she showed us the whole setup in this TikTok, which I think is really interesting and a kind of like innovative and new way to communicate with ghosts, I guess. But I just love these like weird things that happen in my haunted house videos because it's like, it's not super dramatic. It's just like you can kind of get a peek into what daily life is living in a haunted house, where it's like these little quirky things that they recognize as paranormal activity but like don't really freak them out anymore. And I think that is so interesting to hear about. Our next TikTok's with user Jade EESG. She tells us about a little stuffed gas station heart that her mom's friend who passed away uses to communicate.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
I have two big ones that have personally happened to me. One of them is super scary. The other one is nice, and I'm going to tell you the nice one first. Okay, so to preface this, spooky things have always happened to my stepmom, and 99% of the unexplainable things that have happened to me have also been in her presence. She's just one of those, like, magnets for this type of thing. So my stepmom's best friend from childhood passed away when they were in their early 20s. Later, my little brother, my stepmom's son, was born on the birthday of this particular friend. And my brother was born with like 4 concurrent congenital heart conditions. So his whole early life, first couple of years of life, he was in and out of the hospital, having heart surgery, cath labs, all that kind of stuff. On Valentine's Day one year, my father got my stepmom just like this crappy stuffed heart from like a gas station. And when you pressed on the heart's hand, it would play this song. And the song was like, do 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 do, do 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 do, if you know it. And they started having this thing happen where pretty much every year on my brother's birthday, also the friend's birthday, or Christmas, or anytime my brother was going to have kind of a big procedure done in the hospital, this heart would go off by itself. And it like didn't need to have batteries. Like just randomly you would hear the do 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 when something big was going on, particularly around my brother, birthday twins. So I knew about the heart. I knew that this would happen sometimes. Spooky, but nice, right? Because it's assumed to be the best friend. Who wouldn't love that? That's nice. One day, me and my stepmom are home alone and we're just sitting downstairs, sort of folding laundry or something, just talking. And she's telling me about this dream she had about her best friend one night. And there were a lot of unanswered questions kind of around this particular friend's death. And, you know, my stepmom was really missing her one night. My father has night terrors, so he'll often kind of like go sleep on the couch if he's having a bad night so he doesn't disturb my stepmom, and he'll always close the bedroom door behind him. In this particular dream, my stepmom dreamt that the door was closed, my father wasn't there, and her friend comes in the door, kind of like gets into bed with her, and they just talk. And she told me that this felt so real that her friend answered all the questions that she had surrounding her death. They got to express how much they missed each other. And it was just really like calming and soothing for her to have that sort of final conversation with her friend. She wakes up the next morning from this dream and the door is open, as if in the dream her friend had opened the door. So she's telling me this really like meaningful dream she had with her friend. And we're both folding laundry and she pauses in the middle of laundry and she goes, wait, hold on. And from upstairs in the nursery where that heart is, as we're talking about this friend, we both hear do 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 do. It sent chills down my spine because we were talking about her. She knew we were talking about her. This thing went off. And it was just a sign of like, I know you're talking about me. I'm here. However, I was 16 and like a scaredy cat and I was sleeping in the room where the heart was. So I walked in later and I was like, hi. Please don't do anything while I'm here. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
I think of all things, the fact that it's like a little heart makes it that much cuter. I just think it is so sweet when your loved ones still show up around you and, you know, use whatever energy they can to like make it known and still celebrate with you for little things like that, even though they can't actually be there in person. I just find stories like this absolutely heartwarming. Like, I just love this story so much. I think also the coincidence of her son having the same birthday as her friend that passed is so crazy. It's definitely like maybe he has a little bit of her in him, if that makes sense. She sent him to her. I don't know. I think this whole story is so sweet. Our next TikTok's by the user Jess is Messy, and she shows us a hidden room behind a bookcase. I really want to know what's in those safes. They look pretty old, and I feel like there could be some interesting stuff in there. Don't know if I'd 100% say this is paranormal. I mean, obviously there was no paranormal activity in here, but I definitely think it does give off the creepy vibes of having like a random hidden room with old safes. I feel like being a true crime girly, my head always goes to like, oh my god, what if someone was like trapped in that room back in the day? That is just always kind of where my brain goes to when I find hidden rooms, or when I see people find hidden rooms, because it just, I don't know, true crime brain, that's where I go to, and that makes it even creepier for me. But I guess in general, a hidden room isn't as creepy as I usually assume it is. But I have a feeling if you guys watch my videos and enjoy them, you probably have a very similar brain to me, so you might find hidden rooms just as creepy. But I think the really creepy factor of this is the fact that there are just like old, kind of dirty looking safes, and I don't know what's in there. Our next TikTok is by the user 1836 Haunted Historic. She tells us that she is having a weird experience with an old dresser she just brought into her home.
We just heard the weirdest noise. I've never heard this before, and it was freaky. I'm laying here with the cats, scrolling through Reddit, wasting my time. Here's Miss Roxy, here's Miss Dilly. 2 cats are in bed with me. I heard over here what sounded like, when a dog is scratching, like if there was like a big dog scratching itself, it was like oh my gosh, it sounded like this dresser over here was shaking. A new dresser that is historic. I have a draft of this telling you guys about this furniture. I just haven't posted it yet, and when I made the video there had been no things. We've been really hearing some weird stuff. My middle little brother, who's 11, has been staying here in my room. Little honey. He's been staying in my room upstairs, which has been empty because, I've been scared to stay up there, but he's the only one in the family who hasn't seen anything, who came down last night and said he heard growling. She's mad at me for talking right now. So he came down at like 1 last night and heard things. He came down and said, actually, you know what? I'll put the little video here.
Like some weird noise, like growling.
Upstairs or downstairs?
Like I was laying on the bed and I just heard like growling from downstairs.
We've been doing a lot lately. We had Thanksgiving, so people were here. We have the roof situation going on. Him sleeping up in my room. That is the room where my other little brother, who's 13 now, came down and saw me and was like, oh my gosh, I thought you were upstairs. You were in your room. I wasn't there, obviously. It was just a silhouette of me. Things are getting spooky, y'all. Oh, look what I got. I want to post a video of what happens when I set up a camera, okay? It's cats and kids everywhere. But I did catch a couple things of us experiencing things. So I didn't catch any ghosts, but I caught that. I'm going to... Oh my gosh, that scared me. That reflection of me. Recording. I'm going to try to see if we can catch some EVPs on this in my house. I'm not going looking for ghosts, but I would like to know, what they want, what they're looking for. So I'm going to ask them right now to please cut it out for the night, because that was a bit much to be happening right next to me. So, getting on here actually helps me, because I was really spooked out when I started this video, and now I feel okay. So thanks, y'all. Appreciate you.
Okay, she kind of touches on a lot of things in this video. I think what's most interesting is that her younger brother isn't afraid and is willing to sleep in a room that she is not. Given that normally it's children who see things like this and are more kind of in tune with the paranormal, whereas adults are able to just like gloss over it. But I think obviously there's no reason for a dresser to just be shaking for a long period of time and or hearing like dog scratching noises coming from around it. That's not really a normal occurrence. Given the fact that her username is Haunted Historic, I think that she must be pretty used to it by now. So the fact that she is sharing these stories and is so creeped out by it says a lot that this is just something extra weird. Our next TikToks by these are Nikki Vienna, and we have security footage that shows what appears to be a ghost moving a playpen. It definitely could be someone pulling it with a string. I think it does kind of seem a little bit staged. At first I kind of thought that it was the daughter doing it and it was just like really slippery on the floor, which obviously is not safe to begin with. However, it kind of became clear that it wasn't her later on in the video. I just think the way that the mom doesn't notice anything, and it's kind of like a too good to be true caught on camera thing. To me, I think it's probably staged. The daughter did seem pretty freaked out by it. However, you know, it's probably along the same lines of when I pull my dog on a blanket and he gets freaked out because he's not understanding what's happening. So I don't think we can really hold much stock in the fact that the little girl is freaked out. So I don't know. My personal opinion is that I think this video is staged, but let me know what you guys think. Our next TikToks by user Paige Chapel. She tells us a story about a time she believes she got in contact with her deceased landlord in a dream.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely.
If you scare easily, go ahead and exit right now. Sorry, it's windy outside, but last year my landlord had a very tragic and sudden passing, and it shocked everyone. I didn't have a super close relationship with her or anything like that, but I did go to her services to pay my respects. Fast forward to November of last year, I'm having this dream, and the next thing I know, my landlord's in the dream. And I was like, okay, this is weird. And you know how when you're in your dream, it's like nothing necessarily is wrong, but something just feels off. Like you're having a surrealism moment. Fast forward, I'm at my landlord's house in the dream, and it's myself. She's there, she has a baby, and then there's another child there too, and we're in the backyard in her pool. But all of a sudden I feel the sense of like danger, like I should be afraid and I'm in danger, and she starts showing a lot of erratic behavior in my dream and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, okay, I have got to get the kids out, myself out, and I need to get her help. Like we all just need to be safe. So I try to think of an excuse to go inside the house, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm gonna go get some more towels and I'm gonna use the restroom while I'm in there. I get inside the house and I said, okay, I need to get upstairs so I can look out the window and make sure that they are still near the pool and nothing has changed, everything is fine. So I'm watching from the bathroom window down to the pool because I can see, and I'm on the phone calling 911 at the same time because again, I feel like we are all in danger. I don't know why, but that's just how I feel. And I was trying to explain to them, and something dropped and I looked down for a second, and when I looked up, she had gotten up from the pool and she was walking in the house like in a hurry. And I was like, oh crap, and I just froze. All of a sudden, I feel my phone buzz and I'm getting a text message. So while I'm on the phone with 911, mind you, so I look at my phone to read who the text is from, and it's from my landlord. It says, I can hear you. Can you hear me? And the fear set in, and it set in so deep that it woke me up out of my sleep. Like I came to so quickly. I literally had a text from her on my phone in my dream, and it said, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Was she trying to make contact with me? That messed me up so bad. Like I had to talk to my best friend about it, and she's trying to make contact with me from another plane. I don't know.
I really think this could go either way. I will say I've lost all of my grandparents, and I frequently have dreams with all of them, any combination of 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, often. Like, very often, and they're like mostly realistic except for a few weird things, like kind of how she explained this dream to be. So it could definitely be something like that. I would assume her landlord didn't mean as much to her as like my grandparents meant to me. So maybe that could be more of an explanation of why a dream about her landlord would mean more than, you know, my grandparents popping up in my dreams once a week or twice a week, whatever. But I just want to point that out, that like I personally have dreams of people who are no longer with us all the time that like relatively make sense, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything. However, it could. It definitely could. And I think it is good to consider all options, like debunking versus what it could mean. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's no like follow-up or anything, so I don't know if it's like she realized something, like the landlord knows that a pipe's about to burst or something, so she's trying to like reach out to her. I don't know if that's the case, or if she's just saying, hey, maybe she has a message for her and this user just hasn't figured it out yet. I don't know. Like I definitely believe that we can kind of reach other planes while we are sleeping. So it really could go either way, that it's just, you know, your subconscious bringing in real life events and turning them into a dream. Or it could be that she was being contacted. I don't know. I think either option is pretty viable. Our next TikTok is for the user renovating up north. And this one is pretty freaky, at least to my true crime brain it is. It is titled, Things We Found While Ripping Out Our Spare Bedroom That Don't Make Sense. Listen, my first conclusion here is that someone was being held in that room. Is that just me? Like, did anyone else have that same thought? Because to me, I feel like that is the most obvious idea. And that's crazy because, like, how often does that really happen? Probably more often than we think, which is a little frightening. I think what really sold it for me was the CCTV. Like, someone was being watched as they were trapped in that room. That's my thought. That's my thought. And it's pretty frightening to think that that could be a possibility. I'd be really curious to know if there's any like police records or anything from that house. Obviously, because it had CCTV in that room, it has to be a fairly recent occurrence, at least within the last, I don't really know when CCTV became a thing, but like, I'm being generous in saying 30 years. So I don't know, but yeah, I would be very curious to find out if there is any documented history of wrongdoings happening in this house. Our next TikTok is for the user Ashley Nicole. She tells us a crazy story about when she was working in a bar in Nashville and traveled with a stranger through the underground tunnels.
Story time about the time I followed a 60-something-year-old retired scripper into the underground tunnels of Nashville. It was early 2021 and I was working as a bar manager at a bar in Printers Alley, which is a stretch of bars downtown that's called Printers Alley because it was originally built as the printing and pressing center of the town. It was where all the newspapers and books were printed. The bar I was working at is now closed, but it was bought a few years prior by two men who wanted to turn it into a bar and virtual pew-pew range. I know it's strange, but this is Nashville. The bar I was working at had only only been there for a year or two, but the building it was in was there for decades. The bar was not typically busy except for the weekends, and the only reason I was working there was because I was laid off from my job at an artist bar downtown, and my friend Kevin called me up because he was managing it, and he was like, hey, do you need a job? And I was like, please. Restrictions from the pandemic had just let up, and I was struggling to make money except for on Tuesday night, because on Tuesday nights there was a ghost tour that came in, and it was led by a man named Rick. The building I worked at apparently was haunted because after it was used as a printing press, it was used as, be careful what I say here, but place where women of the night and rich men would come to spend time with them. It was where they worked. Not legally, of course, and this was sometime in the 1920s. The building had a basement, which is where the tunnels were, a main floor, a mezzanine floor, which looked over the main floor, so it was basically a second floor with a railing that overlooked most of the main floor, and then it had a rooftop. I actually think there might have been private residences between the rooftop and the mezzanine, but I'm not sure. It wasn't part of the bar, so I never went up there. And Rick, the guide for the ghost tours, became kind of my friend. He would sit at the bar while the people that he brought in would walk around with drinks and cameras and try to capture anything they could get. Rick didn't drink, so after he introduced the group to the bar, he would sit at the bar, drink a Coca-Cola, and talk to me while everybody hunted for ghosts. As one of the key holders for the building, I often closed by myself, and I had experienced some pretty weird stuff going on late at night when I was there alone. On one occasion, I was counting money by myself, and the music shut off and switched to classical. Once I started paying attention, it switched again to a choir of children's voices singing in Latin. What I think was Latin, I don't know. It freaked me out so much, I threw the money in the safe and I ran out. Other things would happen sometimes. The lights often flickered when I was in the bathroom alone, but I chalked this up to old wiring. Anyway, I told Rick all of this information, and I was like, do you know who's haunting this building? He said, I do actually. He said her name is Cindy. Cindy apparently was a woman of the night back in the 1920s or early 30s, whenever this was all going on. One of the regular customers of the bar had fallen in love with her. He was apparently a person of power with a wife and children. He told Cindy he wanted to take her away from her rough life of selling herself, and she apparently fell in love back. You can probably see where this is going, but he did not leave his wife. He told Cindy they had to end their affair, and she apparently threw herself off the second floor mezzanine onto the main floor. Now, I can't verify any of this. This was just the lore that Rick told me. I've looked into it. Nothing for Cindy turns up. A lot of other stuff for Printers Alley and the Ghost That Haunt It turns up, but nothing for Cindy. But I trusted Rick because he was kind of no BS. He was probably in his 70s. He wore a long black suit. He was clean cut and he was polite. He was also just ghostly pale, which I just felt like was perfect for his role as guide of these ghost tours. So anyway, Rick said he was a Nashville native and he had worked in Printers Alley years prior, and that he had had personal encounters with Cindy. He's like, yeah, if you talk to her, she talks back. He said, she's friendly. She's not trying to scare you. So after Rick tells me this, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to talk to her, but I do tell all of my coworkers. Some of my coworkers didn't believe it. Others were intrigued, and one in particular wanted to download a ghost box app to try to communicate with Cindy, which we did. Anyway, there was this woman that would hang out outside the bar anytime the ghost tour was in, and she loved to talk smack to them. I don't know if her and Rick had beef. They were around the same age, but anytime the ghost tour left, she would start yelling at them. She was very crass, very vulgar. She was missing teeth, and she would say things like, that man is full of S. I know where the real ghosts live. She was often in and out of the bars in the alley and just hung out there. I just thought that she was a local with too much time on her hands. But one night when the ghost tour left, she walks in and asked me if I'll hire her. I said, for what? And she said, I can either lead ghost tours in this building and you can fire him, or I'll dance. She was probably in her 60s or early 70s. I said, what do you mean dance? And she said, I can go to the store, I can get some cute little outfits, and I can get on the bar and dance like I used to. She introduces herself as Lil Bit. She tells me that she has been an alley rat in Printers Alley since the late 70s, early 80s. She says, yeah, I used to dance right there, and points at a bar across the alley from where I work. The bar she was pointing to in particular is called Skull's Rainbow Room. It is a cocktail bar and lounge, and it is notoriously haunted. A lot of stuff has gone down there, but the most recent was in 1998, the owner of the bar was unalived in the bar. He may or may not have had criminal ties because at that time, that part of Nashville was very seedy. Lil Bit tells me she's the one that found the body. Now, I can't confirm that Skulls was ever a strip club, but they still do have burlesque on the weekend. She says she was a dancer there, and one day she was coming into work. The place was closed, and she walked in to find the cigarette man. I guess at that time they had those things delivered and sold them there. She finds him standing over the body of the owner of the bar. He says, I found him this way. And she said, well, I guess I'm not working today. And she says, yeah, I kind of been looking for a similar job ever since, but now I'm married to this guy and he takes care of me. He'll be excited to have me out of the house and out of his hair. So if you want to give me a job, that'd be nice. And I said, I don't think at this time we're hiring any scrippers or any ghost hunters because we didn't even have an affiliation with the ghost tour that came in. We just allowed it because they brought us business. So then she told me, well, if you're not going to hire me, I guess I'll be on my way. And I said, you know what? Let me buy you a drink. I was closing up the bar anyway, so she sat there and talked to me while I finished. She finished her drink as I was counting money, and she says, so did you meet Cindy yet? I stopped what I was doing and looked at her because I hadn't told her anything about Cindy. I stopped what I was doing and I said, what do you know about Cindy? She tells me, yeah, I know that bitch. We go way back. I don't know if Rick had told her anything about Cindy, if she had done one of his tours, because again, I don't know the lore between her and Rick and why she hated Rick so much. Then she started laughing and she said, yeah, she's got a thing for men with glasses. And her saying that stopped me in my tracks because almost every time I opened the bar, I would find a pair of reading glasses on the bar. It was like a running joke at that point with my coworkers because none of us wore glasses. I was often the last one to leave and then open in the morning. The owners were never there, so we had no idea where all of these glasses were coming from. I literally had a box of them in the office. None of us had ever made the connection between these glasses and ghosts. We just thought somehow we missed them while cleaning the night before, which in retrospect is pretty weird because we were really thorough with our cleaning. I feel like we would have noticed them if they were in such a prominent place as just in the middle of the bar, because we wipe that down every night and we put chairs on it. Anyway, when I tell Lilbit about the glasses that I've been finding on the bar, she laughs and she's like, oh, she likes you. Lilbit says, well, I don't have anything to do tonight. My old fat husband is probably asleep at home. So do you want to go get another drink with me and I'll show you where Cindy mostly stays? I say, sure. I did not know at this point that I was agreeing to go into an underground tunnel with her. I thought she meant that Cindy stayed at another bar. So we walk into another bar in the alley. It is now something else than it was when I worked there. So we walk in, she says hi to the security guards and the bartenders. They all know her. She walks straight to the back of the bar, opens up a broom closet. There's a bunch of cleaning supplies, and past the cleaning supplies, there's a set of stairs that goes into a basement. She's like, follow me. I already know some of the comments are going to be like, why did you follow this random stranger into a dark tunnel in the basement? Listen, I trusted her with my life at that point. She was so funny, so kind, so inviting, even if she was crass, and also I could take her. I'm not trying to be like whatever, but like, she was older. She was out of shape. She just wasn't a threat. But just to be safe, before I went down there, I texted my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and I said, just so you know, I'm about to go into an underground tunnel in Printers Alley with a retired scripper. I'm sharing my location with you just in case. He was out at another bar in East Nashville with his friends after work because he was a bartender at the time too. And he said, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. Come meet me at the bar after. It honestly was probably not that surprising to him because weird stuff was just always happening when I was working at this bar. So I follow her into this tunnel and it's unfinished. It's cinder block walls. It's like a cement floor, cracks in the walls, whatever. And we walk for a little bit and she's like, this is where Cindy stays. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, the old tunnel system. She didn't tell me anything about it. I had to research it on my own. Nobody really knows why it was initially built. Maybe the Underground Railroad, someone said in a previous comment on another video, maybe as a way for runners to move liquor during Prohibition, or maybe as a way for the hospital that used to be downtown to transport bodies to the downtown morgue. Either way, it was kind of spooky, but it really just felt like an unfinished basement. It was cold. We're walking for a little bit, but you can see both ends. Like parts of it were walled off, like there had been other tunnels to go down, but they were like bricked over. And then there's another staircase. So we walk up it and we're in another cleaning closet. And she opens the door and we're in another bar. These two bars, from where we started and from where we came out, were like 3 buildings apart. So it was not that far. I don't know the full extent of how big this underground tunnel system is, but I have heard stories from other people who have worked downtown or worked in these bars who have said that their building has had a basement with an entrance to the tunnel, but that it had been bricked over. So I'm sure that the tunnel system is not extensive anymore. Anyway, we come out in this other bar. She says hi to all the staff. Apparently she just does this often because nobody bats an eye. We get a drink and then I actually did end up inviting her to come hang out with me and my now husband at the next bar we were at. She gave me her number. She said, call me if you ever need a ghost hunter or a scripper for your bar. So this was 4 years ago. I looked, I still have her number in my phone. And I did see her often hanging around downtown after that, but not in years. I did not work at that bar long. I went back to Broadway around early 2022, late 2021. I've wanted to make this video for a while because my experiences with Cindy the ghost are part of the reason I believe in the paranormal and the supernatural. And I actually did reach out to the company that Rick used to work for as a ghost tour guide to see if I could get in contact with him somehow, but they never responded to me. I doubt Lilbit will see this video because she doesn't seem like the social media type, but some other people did comment on my last video when I mentioned her saying that they have met her too. So she was just a wild woman, but she was very kind. I hope she's doing well, and I will be sharing the rest of my Nashville lore in this playlist, but I will continue to post regular spooky scary story times as well.
That's a pretty brave thing to do when you first meet someone, is to go to underground tunnels that you are not familiar with. But I think it is such an interesting story. I think this is definitely one of the more interesting stories we've discussed recently. I kind of want to know like what the beef is between the ghost hunter guy and the lady. I feel like that would make for another very interesting story. I definitely think from the story, it sounds like there's a very high chance that, you know, she is being kind of watched and followed by Cindy. What's so interesting to me is those glasses that she mentions appear on the bar all the time, because where do they come from? Like, I'd be interested to know what they do with them every night. Is it the same pair that they, like, when they find it in the morning, they put it in lost and found and then it ends up back on the bar? Or like, is there an abundance of glasses just appearing and then their lost and found is full of random glasses? Like, how does that work? But I just think this is such a cool experience. Obviously, things could have gone wrong following a stranger into underground tunnels, but the fact that everything turned out just fine, I think it is such a cool experience she had, and it sounds like a lot of really interesting stuff happened at that bar. Our next TikToks with user Kelsey Davies, and she reenacts a ghost encounter she had while cooking dinner. I love these like little helpful ghost stories. I've been seeing a lot of reenactments recently and I am enjoying those as well. It's kind of like a different perspective on retelling a ghost story. This specifically makes me wonder if the ghosts who are like helpful like this, do they miss being alive and like doing regular mundane things like cooking, and that's why they're giving her advice so they can still get a little bit of a taste of what it used to be like to be alive and cooking and stuff? I feel like that's a really sad thought, but I feel like that's what it must be. Or, you know, they're just really, really helpful. They want to have a pal or someone to talk to. Also kind of sad, but I really feel like that must be the case, that they're just like appearing because they miss interacting with people and miss doing the mundane tasks of life, I guess. Our next TikTok is with user Halloween at ESP. In this TikTok, we see actor auditions for Halloween nights at Eastern State Penitentiary.
Did you hear about it? We're all eating flesh. It's the new thing. We all need to eat it since the spiders. The spider legs. To me.
I like cicadas. Cicadas. How lazy you are! What are you doing? Don't look at me unless you want to be under the sun next!
Looks for me. I'm everywhere.
I have a lot of things to say about this. First off, despite what you probably assume about me, I don't like haunted houses. Like, I am afraid for my life. I mean, afterwards, like, I love the adrenaline once you're like out of it, but during, I am so scared. Like, I don't even enjoy it. Like, I don't even have fun because I am genuinely that scared. And it's like fight or flight kicks in, and I genuinely, my body feels like I'm gonna die. It really makes me kind of uncomfortable to watch because it's just bringing back memories of being in haunted houses and being like scared for my life because people were acting like that in their costumes as they're supposed to be. But like, again, I've never enjoyed it. So this video is like particularly scary. Another thing I will say is number 81, according to her tag, the one with like the cotton candy tie-dye biker shorts, she's good. Like, uncomfortably good. So I really hope she got a spot there. And then my other thought is I would be so like embarrassed. Not that I should be embarrassed, not that any of them should be embarrassed, but I would be so embarrassed and feel like awkward acting like that outside of makeup. Like when I do my own makeup for Instagram and TikTok and I turn myself into like creepy creatures, I can act weird and scary and make weird faces and feel perfectly fine about it. But if I did that with my normal face and not the scary makeup, I feel like the makeup to me is like a mask where it's like it's okay for me to like act weird and scary. So the fact that none of them are wearing makeup and they're just like in their normal persona and acting like that, I couldn't do it. I feel like if I put the makeup on and showed up to the audition, I could like, I'd be in character and I could like do it. But I don't know, like I'm getting anxiety for them that like they look like the normal person. It's like for me, if I act spooky and stuff, I like need to be in character with the makeup and everything. I don't know, that's like really deep, weird thoughts, but like this video, I feel like there's so many levels to it and I really wanted to include it because there's just so many good things about this video and so many thought-provoking moments here. Our next TikTok is with user Raikey86. In this TikTok, we see security footage of some ghostly activity that is happening during the middle of the night. The most intriguing part of this video to me is the very beginning. Right when the lights turn on, you can see that orb floating directly towards the camera. I think that is definitely the most obvious and craziest part of this video. Other than that, just like the little knocking here and there, I think it's all very subtle, but when you put it together, it's like, it's so scary to think of what happens in your house while you're unaware of it. And I genuinely think I would be so scared waking up in the morning and then like seeing my Ring camera showing that there's notifications of activity happening in my house while I was asleep and had no idea. Obviously, it made me feel a little bit better. There's not like an intruder that's actually posing a threat to me, but still, the fact that like things are happening while I'm asleep and my house should be shut down and inactive for the night it really makes me uncomfortable. Our next TikTok's with user Daniel25. And here we have another bit of home security footage where we can see a ghost knocking over a children's toy.
I'm not taking my nose.
Get a tissue.
I wasn't picking my nose.
Don't yell like that.
I was putting myself on my nose, but I
Look at
wasn't
me.
picking it.
First of all, don't raise your voice like that. It's inappropriate. And see, now the ghost is very upset. Don't do that.
That and there's no ghost in here.
Well, I don't know.
I think the first part of this video is hilarious. I love that that's what's happening and what they caught right before they caught the ghost activity. I can't really tell who the ghost was upset at. Was it upset at the dad for judging the kid for picking his nose, or was it upset at the kid for picking his nose? So many important questions come up in this video. But clearly it is a common occurrence, the fact that they're able to joke about it and no children are freaking out. If my parents did something like that to me, I would be absolutely freaking out. So it definitely is something that happens regularly, and the children apparently are not afraid of ghosts. Our next TikTok's by user is Zoe96468, and she tells us a story but when she was once staying at her ex-boyfriend's house, and on the way to the bathroom in the middle of the night sees a creepy figure in the living room.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, I got one for you. So, like 12, 13 years ago or more, I don't remember. It's been so long. Back when I was in college, and I had my ex-boyfriend with me at the time, I was sleeping over at his house. And this was his parents' house, but his parents weren't home. It was just me and him, and we were just there. I was spending the night, and I woke up in the middle of the night because I had to pee, and I couldn't hold it, so I got up, and everything was dark. I walked over to the doorway, and the bathroom is like catty corner to his bedroom door, and there was a really long hallway that all the bedrooms were, located at. So I needed to cross the hallway to get to the bathroom. Well, as I was crossing the hallway, I look over into the living room down the way, and I saw a shadow figure. It was of a little girl, and she was like bending over and praying like this. I have to hold my phone with my other hand, but to pretend I have both of my hands and I'm in a praying position. And she was like praying like this. And she had really long hair and dark hair, and it came down here like this, and she was just praying like this with her long hair. And I had a double take because I was like, no way I'm seeing this. This has got to be something in his living room, a piece of furniture or something. So I'm like squinting, I'm like, oh my god, it is what I think it is. And I was like, shit. I fucking flipped, guys. I screamed so loud. I immediately ran to the bathroom and slammed the door, locked it. I started bawling my eyes out because I knew what I saw was a freaking little girl ghost on her knees praying with her head down, because there was nothing in his living room that would ever give that shape if it was just an object in the dark, There's no way. Because I even checked the next morning. I checked to see what could have possibly made that shape, and there was nothing. There was nothing there that could have possibly done it. So I was in the bathroom screaming, I was shaking and crying. I was out of my mind. And I was also really mad because my boyfriend at the time was clueless and didn't even hear me screaming. It took him like 5 whole damn minutes just to come over there and see if I was okay. I was like, oh my god, I saw a ghost in your living room. I saw a shadow. I swear I saw it. It was a girl. I saw a little girl. And I'm like freaking out. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. Like, you didn't see anything. Let's just come back to bed. Like, calm down. Everything is fine. I'm like, oh my god. It was crazy. I always remember that. But yeah, that was the time I saw a ghost in the living room.
One thing I'm constantly afraid of is looking into a dark room and seeing a figure that I shouldn't. But the idea of being at someone else's home, one that's not your own, that's not your safe space, that you're not as comfortable in, and then seeing a dark figure is even worse in my opinion. I also don't really like the fact that he didn't believe her and just kind of brushed it off. That would definitely make me pretty annoyed with him. And I think what makes this more frightening is you don't know if the little girl praying is actually like a little girl praying, or if it's something pretending to be a little girl praying and has negative intentions behind it. In situations like this, it's so like kind of frustrating that, you know, children are supposed to be relatively harmless, and bad things will take advantage of that and use things like praying, that again is supposed to be kind of like a symbol of safety and or like God, and will use that. And so then you can't really trust it because you're like, is it something pretending to be good by doing this, or being a child or praying or whatever? Or is it actually good, you know? So I guess it's just like one of those things that like, it's not very great when people take good things and use them for evil. So I don't know. Whatever she saw though, I definitely lean probably towards something along the bad lines. Our next TikToks with user Mrs. Essential. She tells us a horrifying story about a time she saw a shadow figure outside of her mom's house.
What's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life, and why you still think about that moment?
Submission. And I know I look rough, but that's what's gonna make it real spooky. But anyway, so one night I was sitting at my mama's house. My mama live in the country, right? So it ain't nothing around, like it's a cow pasture down the street. It ain't no street lights or nothing like that. So the only light outside is my mama's porch light. And at the time I was talking to this little guy, and it was a lot going on in my mama's house. So I was like, let me step outside and get a little privacy. And in my mind, I was like, it's going to be cool. Like, as long as I'm on the phone with somebody, can't nobody get me, because it's like, it's a person out here with me. That was a lie. So I'm sitting there, and the beam from the light is shining onto my mama's yard. And on this side of the beam is darkness. On that side of the beam is darkness, because it ain't no other light but the porch light. So as I'm sitting there talking on the phone, we politicking, cupcaking, whatever what we do. Here come a shadow out of the darkness. And when I tell you it's a shadow, it's not one of them shadows that lay down on the ground. This was like negative space, like a person walking. It was upright, but it was a shadow. Like it was dark. Like you couldn't see the light passing through this person. Man, the person, I could still see it to this day. Like she had long hair. You could tell I can get chills, but she had long hair. She had it looked like she was bundled up. She had on a dress or whatever. I could make out all of this, but like you couldn't see through this person. And she was just walking. So I'm staying on the phone, and I'm just like watching and trying not to let on that I can see this person. And like, are they seeing me, seeing them? So they just walking. And I watched it until it went into the darkness on the other side of the light beam. And as soon as it disappeared, something came and said something to me in my ear. Like, as soon as the figure went into the darkness, something in my ear breathed like breath and said something, but I couldn't even sit there long enough to make out what it was saying because I was so shook. I jumped up so fast and slammed the door on my leg, trying to close the door and get in the house so fast. And when I got in the house, I could feel the difference in the air. Like, have you ever had somebody trying to say something romantic to you and they whispering deep down in your ear? And then when they walk away, the moisture from their breath, it makes your inside of your ear feel cold. Bruh, that's what happened to me. Like, this person was a real entity or something, and it had hot breath, and it was saying something to me inside of my ear, but I could not. And to this day, something say you should have just saw what it was going to say, but I was so doggone scared. And that's only one of the things that's going to happen to me. And a lot of this done stopped since I done grown up and became an adult. And I got my own theory about that. But yeah, that stuff real.
I could just feel as she was explaining the feeling of someone whispering in your ear, and that just dampness. I hate that to begin with. It makes it even creepier that no one was there. The damp warmness of having someone just whisper in your ear, and you know it happened, but no one was there. That is so scary. I I like can't believe that she just sat there and didn't run inside as soon as she saw something. I probably would have ran inside so quickly I wouldn't even realize it wasn't an actual person, because if you're in the middle of nowhere, why is someone walking on my property? But the fact that she sat there and she realized that it was just a shadow and not actually a person, it's like a shadow person, and she sat there and just watched it disappear into the shadows, and then had it speak to her directly in her ear, I would not be sleeping at all that night. I'm glad that nothing bad like happened to her too, because I feel like that's just way too close to her comfort in my opinion. So I'm glad that she's okay after this experience. Our next TikTok is from the user UG5556. That was a really great burp, Oscar. She tells us a story about the ghost man in her house.
Hi, I'm back to talk about the ghost man and other things. Wearing a different outfit, ignore that. So I thought, because the ghost man story is like super short, that I would tell you my theory about this house, and then I would tell you like 3 or 4 things that have happened here that are like small and not their own whole, story. So my theory on this house, like I said, it's super old. I think that when we moved in, the spirits here were like a little bit peeved about like having new inhabitants. So there was like a lot of activity when we first moved in. It has slowly like died down. Nothing really happens anymore. It's more just like little things like my dog like interacting with things that we can't see, like seeing things out the corner of our eyes, that sort of thing. Nothing like, I don't know, big. But when we first moved in, I think, again, like they were peeved, so there was a lot more activity. So that's when like the doorbell happened. Me waking up to the ghost man happened when we first moved in. So what happened was I was alone in the apartment, shocker, as it always is, when these kind of things happen. And again, it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I woke up and there was like a man standing over my bed, and I thought it was like a man, like a person had broken in and was standing over my bed. And I freaked out, and fight or flight kicked in, and I went to fight, and I went to grab him, and he disappeared. But like I can still see his face in my head. Like he was wearing a windbreaker. Like I felt like it was a real man. It wasn't, I was fully awake. It wasn't like a lucid dream or whatever you call those. Like I woke up and there was a man standing over my bed, and he disappeared when I went to grab him, like disappeared into thin air. So that's really the story on that. It hasn't happened since. It has happened to me at my parents' house with like a different person being over me, but I know for a fact that place is haunted, so that's another story for another day. Yeah, freaky. Another thing that has happened is that I swear when we moved in, I got pushed down the stairs in the back. My husband doesn't believe that. He thinks that I just fell. I felt like a push from behind, and next thing I knew, I was like at the bottom of the stairs. But again, that was at the beginning when we first moved in, so I feel like the spirits or whatever were feeling like a little bit peeved. That hasn't happened since. Again, I have fallen down the stairs since, but different. And then the last thing that I think I want to talk about is, I kind of have to show you this one. So my husband has an Apple Watch, and he sleeps with it like on his nightstand, and he keeps, during the day, he keeps his charger like this. Like there's a drawer right here. He keeps it so that he can like grab it at night, otherwise it gets lost in the ether. And I was sitting in the living room, and I was hearing like this sound, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm walking around the apartment. I'm like, maybe it's the upstairs neighbors, maybe it's something else. And I finally figured out, that's my dog crying in the background, ignore that, that it was this, and it was like doing that, like super slow, not like as if a gust of wind had come in and pushed it. The windows were closed, the fan was off, air purifier was off. I don't really know why it was like that, but it really freaked me out. And that was actually really recent. That was like in the last couple months. But yeah, that's really all the exciting stories I have. So The end.
I can imagine like waking up, seeing what you think is a actual man standing at the end of your bed. How scary that would be on its own. But when you go to fight this person off, they just disappear and you're left there wondering like, what the heck just happened? I mean, when I wake up, half the time I'm not really sure what's going on. So to have to be like alerted awake that quickly because you think you're in danger from a stranger being in your house to then them just like disappearing. So scary and crazy. It's like, how do you even comprehend something like that happening? Our next TikToks for these are Denver Coma. She tells us a story about a time she was working in a mortuary and she had an uninvited guest.
Tell me a story about a time that you know that you saw something, but you don't ever tell this story because you know that no one would.
I actually told this story on one of my lives and someone had told me I needed to share it, so here we go. So I was a mortician for many years, so the stories I have are endless, but this story is the first scary experience that I had and is the one that is burned into my mind. So I was a recent college grad and had my first local mortuary job, and I had been there about a month and it was my time to open by myself. So naturally, first time opening by yourself, it is kind of intimidating, kind of scary. Mortuaries, and especially in the back areas, have very long, dark hallways. They're not very well lit. So I am going through the back areas to start to turn on all the lights in the chapel, the staterooms, and I am starting to walk towards the front. And as I start to get towards the front, I hear talking, and the talking is kind of muffled. I really couldn't at that point make out what they were saying. And I almost didn't want to open the door that led to the front because I knew it was just me in there. But we hadn't had any loved ones in the building at that point. And so I'm like, well, there's no deceased here today yet. And it's just my mind. It's just playing tricks on me. I didn't believe in the supernatural until I was a mortician. So I opened the door and looked to my right, and there is a man sitting on the bench that's there. And this man looked like any other man. He was having a full-blown conversation with himself, saying how he messed up, how it was all his fault, how his wife was looking for him and he's an idiot, and like all of these things. Well, I am physically frozen. I cannot move a muscle. And I'm just like, in my head, like, the alarm was set, it wasn't unarmed, I unarmed it, it wasn't going off, what's going on? So about 5, maybe 10 minutes later, what felt like 30 hours, my coworker comes in behind me. And she sees him sitting there too. She's also frozen. I don't know what it was. After he was done talking, we were able to unfreeze. I have literal goosebumps. And this man looks at us and he was like, you're going to be the ones that help my family. And then he walks out, doesn't just float through, walks out the front door and leaves like a normal person. Fast forward to that afternoon for our afternoon arrangement, and lo and behold, this woman and son walk in. And as we're going through the arrangement, still we have no idea, but they pull out photos to start the slideshow. This man that was his wife and child that we were doing the arrangement for, and he had died in a motorcycle accident the day before. Now, I know it's not super creepy or shapeshiftery or anything like that, but when I tell you that this man was a normal man and that he had the power to freeze us to where we physically could not move and knew that we were going to be the ones to help his family, it's just insane. I have way more actually creepy stories from the mortuary days, and lots of supernatural stories, things that I really don't talk about, but it's real, people. It is real. And I might do a mortuary series and drop more stories because I have seen a lot in my 7 years.
What are the odds that she's like preparing a funeral for this little girl and mom, and the dad also just passed away. Like, am I understanding that correctly? Like, I just rewatched it again, and that's what I'm getting from this. So maybe I'm wrong, but to me it sounds like she just said that the arrangement she was doing was for this mom and her daughter, and the man was the dad/husband that passed away the day before the funeral. Like, really, what are the odds of that? That's crazy if that's the case, which again, I hope I'm understanding that correctly. I think it's really nice that he was there. And I mean, if that's the case that all three of them like passed away within the same few days, that's incredibly sad. But I guess on the bright side, if you want to look at it this way, at least they're all not together. I mean, I can't imagine from the husband's perspective losing your wife and your child at once. So I don't know, I guess it's nice if they're all together again and he was able to kind of watch over as they were being, you know, prepared for their viewing and everything. I don't really know if I believe that ghosts can like make you freeze, like it's some kind of spell or something. It could have definitely just been they were both in fight, flight, or freeze mode and froze. And it just kind of, the timing was similar between the two of them. I don't really think that he necessarily like cast a spell on them or something like that. But that is really freaky that they kind of just like were frozen there as he's watching them. And I can't imagine like the thoughts going through her head, the realization the next day when she sees that same man in these pictures and puts all of it together. Kind of a pretty sad story, but also very interesting how it seems to all kind of come together in this way. Okay, our next two TikToks are by the user JadeEESG, which just now realizing I shared one of her TikToks earlier in this video, so that is completely my bad for not grouping them together better. Apologies. However, these next two TikToks that I'm going to show you include more of her paranormal story times, and it is something I don't think you guys are going to want to miss. The first one of these two I'm going to show you, she tells us about a creepy experience she had while she was staying over at her parents' house one night.
Okay, I'm sorry. Work has been crazy. I will tell you guys my scary ghost story now. I tried to record this. It got way too long, so I'm gonna try. Okay, I grew up in Washington. My other set of parents, my father and stepmom, live outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. So I would go stay with them like once or twice a year, let's say. This particular time, they had just moved to a new house, and I was very excited because their last house was a dark place. Scary. I have stories about that house that I will not share here, but let's just say that I was super relieved that they were not there anymore. I was excited. So picture it, summer, 17, I'm going to stay with my other family. I'm like, oh, creepy things won't happen anymore. That's great. Little did I know. Okay, quick layout. Bottom floor, all the living area, set of stairs, very small landing, and all the bedrooms are clustered around this landing. On this particular night, everyone goes to bed before me, let's say at like 10. Parents in one room with my baby brother, my other little brother who's like 12 at the time in the other room, and then the nursery, which is where I'm sleeping. Okay, so it's like midnight, I'm awake, I'm 17, I'm reading a book. I had just gone to the bathroom, so I knew for a fact everyone was upstairs because they all sleep with their doors open. The landing is super small, so I saw all of them a moment ago. They were all fully asleep in their beds. So I'm minding my own business, reading, and from the bottom of the stairs, I hear something. And it's footsteps on the stairs. And it sounded like a little kid almost, like, you know how little kids just like kind of barrel up and down the stairs, like do 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 do. Yeah. Stops at the top of the stairs. I'm like, what the is this? I hear it go back down. Do 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 do. This continues to happen. I hear it multiple times. Do 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 do. My grandma was very spooky and kooky, and she always told me if anything paranormal happened to ignore it, because if you pay attention, you'll like feed into the energy and it will get more aggressive and stronger or something. So this is in my head and I'm like, I'm ignoring this. Nothing's happening. Everything's fine. And again, stuff had happened at their last house and I was just like, not again. So I'm ignoring it because it's gonna stop, right? At this point, I have like a headphone in, volume very low, pretending I'm not listening to the running up and down the stairs. I hear it come back up. Do, 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 do. It stops. Stops for a few minutes. I'm like, okay, maybe it's done. Let's say 5 minutes passed after this thing had stopped at the top of the stairs. Again, the landing is small, so let's say hypothetically, wherever this thing stopped is like 3 feet from my closed door. After a few minutes, I'm sure everything is all good. I kind of relax and I'm still reading my book. And then suddenly, it was like a full-grown man, like a 6 foot tall man, took both of his fists and slammed it way harder than that. Slammed it against the door of the room I was sleeping in. The door shook. I jump up. If there's fight and flight, there's also freeze. And I fucking froze. I was so scared. But again, my grandma's wisdom, I'm like, I have to ignore it. Nothing happened. 2 minutes later, again, harder. And the vibe was genuinely like, don't ignore me. That was like the vibe I got from the second slam. A couple minutes go by, I haven't moved. But I'm like, what do I do? I decide to take action. I take my blanket, wrap it around my body for protection. Flip on my bedroom light. I swing open the door to meet my fate. The landing is empty. Everyone is sleeping, obviously. I flip on the hallway light, flip off my light. Flip on my brother's light, flip off the hallway light. Close his door, shake him half awake, and I'm like, scoot over, I'm sleeping in here. I'm 17, he's 12. We haven't shared a bed in several years, but that's how scared I was. It is summer in Nevada, and I literally have the covers over my face like this, and I'm like breathing in my own carbon dioxide, but I was like, I have to have the covers over my face. After like 15 minutes on his door, again, softer, but kind of like a, I know you're still in there. I was like, thank God I'm going home tomorrow. Anyway, this started happening to them after I left. This would happen on my brother's door, the slamming. From downstairs, they would also start hearing like muffled arguments at the landing, like voices fighting. Anyway, they moved out of the house as quickly as possible because it was super scary. I don't know if this was like an actual ghost. I don't know if this was like residual energy from like a bad DV type of thing going on in that house previously, but I did not like it. And yeah, that's it. Sorry, this was super long.
I would have such a hard time like acting normal and not being terrified hearing someone pacing back and forth up and down the hallway. Not to mention then having someone slam their fists against my bedroom door. Growing up, my brother would like frequently do that, like just being a little brother and, you know, trying to annoy me. And I would always have to pretend that it didn't scare me to death every single time. Like I would practically jump out of my skin every time that happened. And obviously I knew it was him, so it was a lot less scary. But I can't imagine that same feeling and knowing that it is not anyone or anything. Then the fact that it followed her and kind of was like, I know you're in there and I know where you went. It's like, in that situation, it's like, it's hard to ignore it and just not give into it because you're that scared that you don't want to be alone anymore. Obviously, it still ends up giving it the satisfaction. So it's a pretty tough situation, but I can't imagine how freaked out she would have been in that situation. In the next TikTok, she tells us a bunch of mini stories that happened at the very dark house she mentioned in the previous TikTok.
You guys are some ghost story fiends. But that's okay. Me too. I got some comments on my other videos of like, oh, of course you have ghost stories because you believe in ghosts, blah, blah, blah. I want you to know I am not seeking this out. This is not something that happens to me all the time. In fact, nothing has happened to me in like 12 or 13 years. On paper, I'm a very credible person. But all I'm saying is like, if I were making it up, I think I would project this onto a lot more stuff in my life. And like, this is all very isolated. Okay, so story one from the old house. It was the first time that I was going to stay there. Me and my brother are hanging out in the living room by ourselves, and he goes, you know, this house is haunted, right? And I'm like, shut up. Don't tell me anything. Shut up. But he's my little brother, so he's a dick. So he starts telling me, like, all the stuff that happens in this house. And it is just, like, a barrage of activity constantly. Like, you might not find these stories as scary as some of my other ones, but for my family, like, we reflect on that house and think of it as, like, the truly scary house because of how often things were happening. Anyway, he's telling me about how the house is haunted. I'm, like, trying not to listen to him, but then we hear a noise. And my father's house is decked out in, like, Raiders stuff at this time. He's, like, he's a California boy, OG Raiders fan, not just because they're in Vegas now. But, like, there's, like, a Raiders tin above the front door that's like one of those tins you'd see in a bar that's decorative. It's like a football helmet and the Raiders logo, and it starts just like vibrating on the wall like da 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 da. I wonder if I have something that can mimic it. Okay, I'm at my husband's art desk and here's a metal thing. So it's a metal thing on the wall like this, and it starts like really fast. And it goes on for like a minute or two, so it's not just like a big truck going by or something, you know, which is what my explanation would be. It went on for a little too long. Okay, story 2, the radio. Okay, so the way that this house is laid out is the primary bedroom is like all on one side of the house, and then the other bedrooms are all the way on the other side of the house. So it's like the nursery and my brother's room. And when I would come stay, me and my brother would like have like sleepover time. Like we would be in the nursery with like blankets on the floor, just gossiping. So he falls asleep. His bedroom is down the hallway and weird stuff happen in there all the time. He has like a very 2000s style stereo, like one of the ones with the volume knob that you have to manually rotate to turn up and down the volume. And I'm the only one awake, of course. And I hear his radio turn on from his room, and the volume turns up all the way. All the way. It was so loud. Turns down, turns back up, turns down. And it wasn't like, there wasn't rhyme or reason to the frequency, because if it was like the same amount of time or pattern, I'd be like, oh, it's like bugging out or whatever. It was like, it would stay loud sometimes for a second. Sometimes it would stay loud longer. I don't know. There was no pattern. So that probably happens like 6 times, and then the radio just turns off while it's at like almost full volume. I was like, I hate it here. Okay, story 3, the cabinets. This one was in the middle of the day, and I have the bathroom door locked because I'm taking a shower. My worst fear is stuff happening while I'm in the shower. I'm so vulnerable. I'm shampooing my hair, and I hear like like tapping on the wall. I look out of the shower. Every single cabinet door in the bathroom has swung open. Every single one. Freaked me out. I also have shampoo in my hair. I'm like, not today. So I finish shampooing, water running and shampoo running down my face like into my fucking eyes, because I'm like, you're not gonna sneak up on me. Okay, story 4, the cat. My stepmom was cat sitting for her best friend, and this was like the world's most ancient cat, I swear to God. It was so old. The entire time, which was like almost a week, that cat just stayed in the bathroom in front of the vents, which is word. Like, it is Nevada, it's hot, like, me too. Its food was in there, the litter box was in there. It did not leave. I cannot emphasize this enough. It did not leave that room the entire time. Until one night, I decide I'm gonna sleep on the couch. This was after the radio incident, so I was scared. So I was watching TV because I was scared, and turn it off, decide I'm like gonna go to sleep now. When the cat, for the first time in days, walks out. It's 3 a.m., by the way. That's important to note. Walks out, stands directly in front of me, stares at me, and just starts meowing persistently. Like yowls as well, like meow, meow. I was like, what? Stop. So I was hoping the cat just decided randomly it wanted to like be pet or something. So I go to like pet it, hoping that's what it wants, and it shirks away from me. And just after it shirks away, it looks above my head, and it's following something like that. And I'm like, nope. Covers over my head, waiting, and then the cat just walks back into the bathroom, doesn't leave again for the entire rest of the time my stepmom's cat sitting. All right, the final story I will tell about that house is secondhand. So my brother would wake up sometimes and he would see a man in a hat like standing at the end of the bed. Super scary. I've never seen anything. I hope to God I never do. But one night he wakes up, nothing's there, but he can feel his blanket, like, hold on, I'll do this with my keffiyeh. He feels his blanket like being pulled off of him like this. And so he panics and he like grabs it back up to him, right? And just after he does that, something pulls it all the way off. It flies off the bed, hits the wall, like flies all the way off of him. And I'm pretty sure he like went and woke up my parents and like slept in there or something. It was scary. I've spoken to 3 different people who have lived on that same road who also had really scary things happen in their house. So like something's up over there. If you live on Tiger Lily Way in Henderson, Nevada, something is wrong. My stepmom is also like really in tune at the time with like whatever is going on with her. And she would like see things, particularly in the archway of between like the living room and kitchen, there's like a little archway, and she would see things like pass between it all the time. She would see the man in the hat like in the hallway, crossing by the archway, like all kinds of stuff. That's kind of when she decided to like shut down her brain to those types of things. And now nothing has happened. In the house that they've been in for over 10 years, nothing's wrong, which is great. Anyway, those are all the ones that are more or less like firsthand for me. You know, I've heard other things from other people in my family, but we'll leave it at that.
I definitely think it's some kind of like weird poltergeist activity. It doesn't necessarily seem like it is dangerous, although if she's referring to it as the dark house, then maybe there's a little bit more to the story than she's sharing, and it could have been dangerous. But to me, it just seems kind of like a poltergeist trying to scare you, but isn't actually going to harm you type of spirit. At least I hope that's what it is. But yeah, it just seems like it's little activity here and there just to freak you out. Like cabinets and the radio turning on and the metal against the wall. It seems all very not innocent, but at least not harmful. Just kind of like your stereotypical little ghost activity. And I don't know, it would definitely freak me out having that much happen all the time. But I don't think it felt dangerous from what I heard. So I'm glad that they're at least out of there, even though it seems like they didn't help much because now they're in a separate haunted house. Our next TikTok is by the user Nathan Triska, and he shares a very creepy video of someone hiding in his bushes in a bunny mask.
Yo, do you see this like bunny mask that's just... Stop. Stop, it's a person. Oh my god, it's a person. 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 Oh my god.
Fairly certain this is staged / just meant to be entertaining. However, I would probably lose it if I saw someone coming out of my front bushes in a bunny mask. I mean, any mask in general would be freaky. Someone hiding in your bushes even without a mask would be freaky. But it just kind of reminds me of back in 2016 when there were clowns on the loose. Does anyone remember that? I really hope someday they write about the killer clowns running around in kids' history textbooks, because that was, what a time to be alive. I was like fascinated back then watching all these clips of people running into these killer clowns, and then I heard of a sighting that happened like the next town over from me, and I was freaked out and thought I was gonna have to run from clowns. What a time. Anyway, that is what this reminds me of very much so. Like it's giving killer clowns but killer bunnies. Our next TikTok is by the user Kelsey Smith 33, and she shows us why it might not be a good idea to clean your carpets.
I'm going to try and properly depict how I'm feeling right now. I'm home alone, and I decided that I wanted to shampoo the carpets for when Jeff came home. Surprise! The house is vacant for a couple years. It was a hippie commune at one point, and one of the previous owners is actually buried on the property. there, to be precise. So while I have never felt anything in the house bad, I've seen enough crime scene photos to know that probably isn't normal. I don't want to be alone now. What is that? It wasn't there before I started cleaning. No.
That definitely does worry me, that maybe if he passed in that spot, it wasn't properly cleaned up. Maybe they replaced the carpet and didn't replace the padding underneath or even the subflooring, and when she went to go clean it, it kind of like reactivated whatever had dried under there and brought it back up through the surface. I feel like that seems pretty logical to me, that that's what could have happened. I don't know, obviously, if this person actually passed in the house and like decomposed, as gross as it is to say. Obviously, she'd probably have more knowledge on that, and she didn't specifically say one way or the other, but the fact that she is kind of implying that that's what this may be makes me think that maybe that did happen. Obviously, it also could just very well be weird staining on the carpet, but I don't really know why that, I don't really know why that would happen, unless it was like a similar thing of like, someone spilled juice or something and they just replaced the top carpet and not the rest of it, and same theory of it reactivated with it being cleaned. I hope that's the case, but I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like I am a little bit worried because obviously that is biohazard. I wouldn't feel too good about knowing the fact that there is bodily fluids and decomposition fluids that have been just dried up and sitting under my carpet for all these years. I don't know. I mean, even if it's dried up, I definitely don't think it's great to be, you know, if you lay down on the carpet and you're laying down on that spot, if you have pets rolling around on that spot, definitely do not think that that is healthy. I think it's definitely a hazard of some kind, even if it's a couple layers below. I would assume, I'm pretty sure legally you're supposed to like get rid of all of it and make sure it's legitimately gone. So yeah, I hope that that's not the case, but I don't really know what else it could be. Our next 4 TikToks are with the user Hales Yes History, where she tells us stories from the haunted dorm she lived in. I'm going to show you the first 2 TikToks together and then the other 2 TikToks. In the first 2 TikToks, she tells us about the time when she was first moving into this dorm unit as an RA, and she experienced her first paranormal experience there.
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life?
I know some people don't believe in ghosts, but I lived in a haunted dorm when I was in college, and I experienced some of the creepiest stuff ever in that situation. So the dorm that I lived in on campus is one of the oldest dorms on campus, and it, of course, has some pretty gnarly stories. Like, a girl was murdered there back in the 1950s, and there have been, you know, kind of spooky reports ever since. And there was actually more than one ghost, but that's another story. So I lived in the second of 3 buildings that were interconnected as one dorm. And in my particular dorm, I was a resident advisor, and I was there for a couple of years as a resident advisor, which is basically, if you're not from the U.S., a babysitter for college students. So before the kids show up for the school year, we have to like decorate bulletin boards and put like name tags on people's rooms so they know where they're supposed to be. And I was literally the only person in the building when this happened. Let me reiterate, the only person in the building. All of the other RAs had gone out together for lunch, and where I was in the hallway when this happened to me, I could see every entrance and exit. Everything was in my line of sight, so it was impossible for someone to have like snuck up on me or like spooked me out. So I'm minding my own business. I'm stapling up name tags. I'm the only person in the hallway when the toilet flushes in the bathroom down the hall. So shared bathroom, right? Dorms down the hall. And I have literally been watching, looking that direction the entire time. No one has come in, no one has come out, none of like the door chimes have gone off, like nothing. So the toilet just flushes and I freeze. And I'm like, no big, probably like a maintenance man, somebody just walked past me or something when I wasn't looking. So I stared at the bathroom door for 5 minutes, like not even blinking, waiting for someone to come out. No one comes out. Like no one comes out. So at that point in time, my cell phone rings. It scares the crap out of me. It's my dad. He was deployed in Iraq at the time. And he's like, hey, what's going on, kid? So I'm chit-chatting. I'm like, Dad, I'm really scared. I think there's somebody in the building with me and I'm all by myself. So my dad is having his existential crisis, like his Liam Neeson moment, like thousands of miles away from his child. So he's like, what the heck is going on? What are you talking about? And I told him, I was like, the toilet flushed down the hall, but there's nobody down there. Like I haven't seen anybody come in or out of the bathroom. So my dad's like, get a grip, walk down the hall and go see if there's somebody in the bathroom. And of course he has to make a joke. He's like, what, are you scared it's gonna be Moaning Myrtle? So y'all, I walked down that hall. I kicked open that bathroom door. I was like, who's in here? I'm like karate chopping. I was whipping back shower curtains. I whipped open all the bathroom doors. There is not a soul in that bathroom. And I have seen enough scary movies where there's shiitake up on the ceiling. So I'm like looking around. There's nothing. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm crazy. And my dad's like laughing at me. He's still on the phone. He's like, you okay, kid? Everything fine? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, this is going to need a part 2. Okay, part 2 of the creepiest thing that ever happened to me. And I lived, so if you missed part 1, it's the part right before this, but I lived in a haunted dorm while I was in college. So I just got done like karate chopping, open all these doors. There's no one in the bathroom and there's no other entrance or exit to the bathroom. It's just the one door. So I come out and I think, okay, I'm crazy, right? I'm just crazy. And at this point in time, ghost hunters had reached like peak popularity. And my friends and I would watch it and like laugh at it and stuff. And they're like, oh, you know, if you're in a building that's haunted or has a ghost, you should talk to the ghost and like say stuff like, oh, you know, it's nice that you're here. And whoops, the ghost is here. So I'm walking down the hall and I was like, you know what? I hung up with my dad. I'm walking back down towards where I was. And I said, you know what? I'm a representative of campus living. If there is like a spooky person in my dorm, you're just welcome to be here. I would just appreciate it if you wouldn't do creepy when I'm not, you know, alone. Like, can you wait till the rest of the girls show up and move in? Because they hadn't even moved in yet. So this is when it happens. And the only way I know how to describe this, if you have ever been standing next to a train as it leaves the station, like in a subway, and your hair like whooshes back from your head, like, because there's like that artificial breeze, that force came down the hall and hit me in the face, like blew my hair back in the face. It sounded like a freaking subway going by, like, so I freak. I like scream. I throw all my papers in the air. I run in my room. I turn on like all the lights. It's like daylight. I have the lights on, the TV on, my Xbox on, like anything that had a light, I turned it on. And then I pulled my covers, like got in my bed and pulled my covers up to my nose. And I was like, I don't want to come out anymore. That was really scary. Luckily, I think that was the only thing that this particular spooky person was interested in doing to me. I had, of course, said to the spooky thing, I was like, hey, you know, if you want to mess with the other girls once they get there, just, you know, don't mess with me when I'm by myself. And the spooky thing did very much mess with the other girls. Luckily, it never messed with me again, except when it came to like locking people out of their rooms. And like it was basically almost like a Peevesy poltergeist. And this isn't even the ghost that was in the building next door. So anyways, that is the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me.
I feel like telling the thing it can mess with her when there were other girls there was not the best call. But at least she communicated that she didn't want to be talked to or interacted with while she was alone. Personally, I prefer you just leave me alone in general. But at least it's not happening when I'm completely by myself. I'd rather you mess with other people and not me. I guess in general, like I wouldn't necessarily say a toilet flush is 100% paranormal. My toilet sometimes randomly flushes. Although now as I say that, maybe my toilet specifically is just haunted. I just assumed it was bad apartment plumbing. I'm just gonna keep going with that. But because my toilet sometimes randomly flushes on its own, I don't think that that is an immediate cause for thinking it's paranormal activity. But what happened after the fact, I definitely think that that probably was a ghost kind of messing around. I'm going to show you the next two TikToks together as well. Both of these are stories about times the ghost mysteriously took people's keys.
Hi, my name's Kristen, and I lived in a haunted dorm when I was in college. And I told you guys about my last experience, or my first experience, with the spooky person that lived inside my dorm, which is the previous 2 videos in this series. And one of you mentioned that, you know, what I said to the spooky person was, please don't, like, punk me or spook me, because that's what it had done. when there's no one else in the building. Like, there's going to be lots of other girls here, so, you know, feel free to prank them and punk them and spook them. And for the 2 years that I lived in this building, 2 years that I lived there, that is exactly what the spooky person did. I don't know. I don't think it was like your typical ghost. I think it was either like the ghost of a frat boy or someone who had a really great sense of humor, although it was very irritating in the middle of the night when these things would happen. But the spooky person would play pranks on the other people in the building. For example, it was very good at taking people's keys and locking them out of buildings, or not their building, or the building or their rooms themselves. Now, I know dorm rooms have like swipe cards now most of the time, kind of like hotels, but we actually had physical keys to get in and out of the building. And so, for example, one of my girls actually came down to my room to talk, and she set her keys on my desk. And I remember that she set her keys on my desk because I heard the very distinctive, right, here's my classroom keys, right, heard the very distinctive as she put them in my little key dish. So we chit-chatted and hung out for like 30 minutes, and then she said, okay, I'm going to go back down to my room. Well, she stood up and she looked over at my desk where the little key, container was, and her keys were gone. Mind you, we had both seen her put her keys in the dish. So she goes, maybe I'm crazy, right? That's kind of the thing with this spooky person. It was always like, maybe I'm crazy. I'm just crazy. So she walked back down the hall and her room was locked. And she had, left her room unlocked before she left because her roommate was in there. And so she texted her roommate and she was like, hey, did you lock the door? And her roommate was like, yeah, I locked it. I saw you take your keys with you when you were on the way out. So as an RA, I had access to something called a master key. So I had to leave my building, go next door to the building that was called Jarvis, go into the main office. I had to put this big expensive key into this lockbox to open up and get a master key so I could get into other people's rooms. So I walk all the way back to my building, because remember, this is 3 buildings connected to one another. And as I go inside, I open up her door and her keys are nowhere to be found. Now, this was a big deal because they would charge you $250 to rekey your door if you lost your keys. So for almost 2 weeks, she was in this kind of like limbo where she could not find her keys. They weren't in my room. Like, I looked behind my desk. They were nowhere to be found. Then one day she was doing laundry and she was out of socks. So she went digging in the bottom of her laundry basket, and inside 2 balled up pairs of socks were her keys. And this is just one of many mysterious things that happened while I lived there. Finish getting ready with me as I tell you more stories about living in a haunted dorm while I was in college. And like a big headband is a requisite for one of these, right? To preface this, I've already put on most of my makeup, but I was like, hey, I need to make a video. So here we go. So let me tell you about a time when the ghost that lived in my dorm decided to just absolutely punk the ever-loving tar out of me. So I mentioned before that Poltergeist, as the ghost is so affectionately called, because it was definitely some sort of poltergeisty thing that loved to just prank people at the most inopportune times, loved stealing people's keys, right? And by the way, I'm just like a shiny eyeshadow person. I'm just living my middle school life, 20 years later. So one night, and I was the kind of kid, just like most college kids, I stayed up late at night because, what is a sleep schedule when you're in college? I'm so freaking clumsy. And so anyways, I get this knock on my door. I think I need a new one of these. I live in a funny farm. So back to what I was saying. I get this knock on my door. And this girl is standing outside my room, basically wearing nothing. So it's one of my girls from across the hall, and she is not appropriately clothed. In fact, she's clothed like she's entertaining someone in her dorm room, which she was. So I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, hey, so I don't know how to explain this, but I am locked out of my room and my boyfriend is locked inside my room. And I'm like, what do you mean? And as I go into the hallway, this is when I hear someone rattling the door inside her room. So she had gotten up to go to the bathroom or something with this very sheer negligee bathrobe on. And I'm like, girlfriend, you could have put on a regular robe, whatever. But she said, my boyfriend can't get the door open. And my keys have disappeared. So I bring her in my room and I'm like, oh, your butt is hanging out. Let me get you something. So I give her a towel and she's like sitting on my couch. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I have to get my big fancy master key and walk all the way across campus. Mind you, her boyfriend was locked inside. Like, he's shaking the door, cannot get it open. Her keys have disappeared. So I walk across to the next building over, get the master key, come back and unlock the door. This entire time, her naked hiney is sitting on my couch. I open the door. Once again, keys go missing for like a week. Eventually, she found them in her freezer.
I think it's really strange that the boyfriend, like, couldn't get out. Like, that is really, really weird to me. Weirder than just, like, you know, the keys go missing. I mean, that is weird that the keys go missing and are found places that there's no reason they should be. But the fact that he couldn't get out is really, really weird. Like, the only reason I could think why that would happen is if it's one of the interior locks where it's like you need a key to lock and unlock it. However, I don't think those have been allowed in a very long time. But at least in Illinois, where I grew up, I know that those are now illegal because it's a fire hazard. You know, if your house lights on fire and you're trying to, like, get out, but you have to find a key to unlock the deadbolt to get out. If you lose your key and then there's a fire and then you're locked in your house, essentially, it's really dangerous. So that's, I don't know if it's like countrywide, but at least in Illinois, I know that is not up to code anymore. So I would assume they wouldn't have that kind of a system in dorms. And to me, that's the only reason why it would make sense why he wouldn't be able to get out, but they shouldn't have that. So then why would he not be able to get out? You know, I don't know. Definitely very interesting stories. I think we've been hearing a lot about, like, haunted colleges these days. Our next TikTok is for the user Mandora Reads. She tells us that she is a realtor and she toured and absolutely loved a house that ended up being bad news.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I'm a realtor in the Midwest in the United States, and I go into a lot of houses. And this isn't going to be like your classic, like, doors were opening and closing, lights were on and off, which I have had those experiences in homes. I've had experiences like that since I was a kid. Like, I am just a hub. I am a haunted person. And if there is something, I'm going to know about it. But this particular thing caught me off guard a little bit. So the year is 2020. We are, you know, COVID pandemic is booming and we're doing a lot of virtual showings. I'm getting a lot of requests from clients that are out of state, trying to move to our state, where the restrictions weren't as big here. So a lot of people were kind of moving state to state at the time. So I get a call from a client about this house that is a foreclosure. It sits on a little bit of acreage way out in the country. I'm talking 10 miles down a rural highway and then another 10 minutes or so down in gravel before you reach this home. So this client calls, says, hey, I'm interested in this house, you know, 5 bedrooms, multiple bathrooms. It's in our price range. It's actually way below our price range. Can you do a video showing for us? So I say, absolutely, I can. I'd be happy to. So I make the appointment. That day I leave the office. I am driving out in the middle of nowhere. I get on the gravel road. I start recording as I drive up to the house. And when I pull up, I'm just like, wow, this is so beautiful. This place is gorgeous. I walk them all around the outside. And as I'm doing this showing, I'm really excited for this client. Obviously, I want them to get it, but I'm also kind of envisioning myself here. So I am taking them through the home. You know, there's several smaller bedrooms, but the master suite is gigantic. The basement is like fully finished, and there's, you know, room for like a playroom down there for my kids, and a workout room, and an office at home for me, and a workshop room for my husband in the basement. And there's plenty of room for us to build him a shop and to have a chicken coop. And so I go through and I am doing this showing, putting my 100% into this video showing for this client. All the while in the back of my mind, I'm also picturing myself here. So I send this video to my client. I say, hey, here's the stuff. Let me know if you're interested. I'll write something up. And so a day goes by. Client finally reaches back out to me and he said, hey, you know, Mandy, I'm thinking that this is probably a little too much work for us. It was definitely a fixer-upper, needed some love, but the potential was there. So I'm like, you know, That's totally fine. I get it. There's a couple other properties that I can show you. If you change your mind about this one, you just let me know. So I immediately, over the course of the next couple of days, I'm thinking about this house. I'm envisioning us there. My husband and I had been talking about moving ourselves because we were outgrowing the house we were in. We had just had a baby. We needed more space and interest rates were low. So my husband gets off work early one day, and this was probably about 3 days after the initial showing. And I had been doing nothing but thinking about this house. I dreamt about it. I thought about it at work. I pulled it up on my computer every chance I got. And so my husband gets off work early. He's at home. I said, hey, I'm going to leave the office. I'm going to pick you up. Let's go see this house. He's like, all right. So I go and pick him up and the baby, and we head on out to the showing. I call the agent, let them know, like, hey, I am looking at this for me, full disclosure. We get to the house. My husband likes the outside of it. I'm talking about, hey, we could put your shop here, and the chicken coop could go there, and the play set could go here. And, I am just giving him this whole spiel. Finally get to the front door. I unlock it. I open it up, and you open up, and you're in this living room with like a little closet to your left, and there's like a fireplace on the right-hand wall and a hallway that goes back down, and then like across from the living room is the kitchen. So I immediately walk in. I'm showing him this fireplace, talking about like this mantle that we could build above the fireplace, and there was a sunroom off the kitchen that we could make the kitchen bigger because it was kind of a small kitchen. And I am just like, I dove right in to telling him how we could make this house work for us. It was a lot of work, but my husband is such a green flag that if I said this was the one, he was gonna say, all right, let's make it happen. So I am doing my best to sell him on this place. I don't know if I have ever like sold a home so hard, or like tried to sell a home so hard to somebody. And I'm doing this to my own husband. I'm in the middle of my spiel, and he goes, babe, stop. And so I stop and I look at him like, what? And he said, look at me. And I looked at him in the eyes, and he said, you're telling me you don't feel that? My husband, who doesn't really have like a spiritual bone in that way in his body, said, you don't feel that? And as soon as those words left his mouth, it was like a veil was lifted. I mean, there was pressure in my chest, and I felt it. It was thick. It was malevolent. It was tangible in that home. Whatever was in there had gotten inside my head so hard and masqueraded itself as like my dream home. And the second that he said that, I got full body chills. I mean, like I said, the air was thick, the pressure on my chest. I looked down the hallway and my heart fell into my butt, because I knew that at the end of that hallway in that master bedroom, there was something that was not good. And so I picked up my baby's pumpkin seat off the living room floor. I walked out of that house as fast as I could. We locked the door, and we took off out of there. But if it had not been for my husband waking me up that day, I don't know what this video would look like. I don't know what resides in that home or what that was. But ever since then, the house was bought and flipped, and it sold, and then it sold again. So since then, it has been purchased and sold 2 or 3 times now. And now every time I go into a showing, I am a Christian, so I will pray for protection, and I set my intentions before I walk in there. And it has done really well so far. But if you're a realtor out there and you are a spooky girl on any level, like, protect yourself, because I don't know what that was, and to this day, it terrifies me. It terrifies me to think what that could have been. And like I said, I was having dreams about this place, about me walking into this place and like living in this place, and just like I was seeing myself there. And even for like a week or 2 after that, I was still thinking about and dreaming about this home. So y'all be careful out there. And if you want to hear any of my other stories, let me know. I got a handful of them.
I think that's so scary that it had the power to like blind her and almost trick her into moving there. It's like, I would assume that other people have had pretty weird experiences if they are moving out that frequently. But yeah, just the fact that it like tried to convince her to move there, and it's like, what would have happened, especially if she has a very young child, accidentally moving her or him into that situation. It's like, I wonder if they would have bought the house and the first day they walk in, the blinds are are peeled back, and all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, what did I do? Thank God that didn't happen. Thank God her husband like wasn't under whatever spell this house put her under. But that is so crazy. I 100% get the feeling of like being like thinking about a place and wanting to make it your home and being obsessed with it. Like I'm about to actually think of when it's a good time to bring this up. I'm actually gonna be moving in like a month and a half, less than that. But I'm like, I am so excited about my new apartment. Like the layout is perfect. Like it is my dream apartment. It is, circle back around to why I've been meaning to tell you that in a second. But I just like, I understand that feeling so much. Like I'm so excited, and it's like, oh my God, this is gonna be my home. And she has that feeling, and then to find out that that has been like just this veil the whole time, that it's something tricking her and making her like she's daydreaming about this place and so excited to live there, and it was the whole time was something evil messing with her. That would be such a scary revelation, and I'm so glad that her husband was able to feel that and point that out to her. Yeah, that just would absolutely be like a heart, stomach sinking revelation. Seeing her in that kitchen, you're like, oh my God, is like everything clears and you're like, wow, I almost lived here. But while I'm on the topic of moving, just letting you guys know, I am going to be moving, which is going to be pretty chaotic because I'm moving states. Not excited for a cross-country move. However, I'm very excited about where I'm going to be ending up. Gotta get through the packing and living out of a suitcase while my stuff's shipped across country. But I'm going to be like pre-filming a ton. So there may be some weeks here and there where my posting's a little bit splotchy because I have a very busy schedule to try and pre-film my makeup looks and YouTube videos and stuff to make sure I have lots of things to post while I'm packed up and don't have access to my equipment. So I have a lot of pre-filming to do the next like five-ish weeks until I move. And also, I would like to say goodbye to my friends before I move. So if there's a little bit of splotchy posting the next couple weeks, I do apologize. I'm like trying to get everything together to like move and also have content for while I don't have my stuff for like a few weeks. So expect content while I don't have access to my stuff, but try not to run myself into the ground in the meantime while trying to get all of that. I'm hoping to pre-film at least 12 to 15 YouTube videos and have them just like saved on my hard drive, and also kind of aiming for like 10 makeup looks to just have saved on my hard drive. So that's a lot to accomplish in the next few weeks. So don't mind me if there's a late video here or there. I'm trying my best. Try my best to be on the ball while I'm moving. Anyway, this is a good segue into that. Moving on to our next video by the user Brittany D. Spivey. She has a knack for kind of predicting the future in her dreams, and unfortunately, one of those predicted her mom's passing.
So in 2021, my deceased grandmother comes to me in a dream, and she had already been passed away a few years at that time, but we are standing in her bathroom, which is crazy because we were not allowed in her bathroom like that, but we were standing in her bathroom in the dream. She would communicate to me with our thoughts. So my mouth never moved, her mouth never moved. We just knew what each other was trying to communicate. Like I could hear her without her moving her mouth. She came up to me in this dream, gives me this big hug and tells me everything is going to be okay. I'm telling her through my mind, like, what do you mean everything's going to be okay? I'm good. Everything's okay. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's going to happen? Like, I'm so confused because she's like, everything's going to be okay. You just have to trust me. It's all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. Then she gives me this big hug. I felt the hug when I woke up. I felt the hug for weeks after. I've never felt a more beautiful, loving hug. It was full of so much love and it was so intense. I've never felt anything like that from anyone. So the next day I tell my mom, like, Grandma came to me in a dream and she told me everything's going to be okay. And she hugged me and I don't know, it just felt like she was like almost consoling me or something. It was just interesting. Then a few months after that, I have a dream that my mom passes away. Now, I did not think that this was a literal dream. Like, we were raised in the church. We thought everything was like, you know, you don't think that somebody's going to pass away. You think it's like, oh, it's a spiritual death and your life is going to change, which it has. But so I had that dream that my mom passed away. Me and my mom talked about it. We talked about it often. Like, We talked about it. You know, I had that dream. Everybody in my family knows when Brittany has a dream, Brittany has a dream. I'm the dreamer in the family. They know, like, if I dream about something, it means something, even if it's not what we think it is. So that was a few months after. Fast forward to January of 2022. I start seeing the numbers 444 every single day, multiple times a day. Not only do I see it every day, I'm waking up at 4:44 a.m. every day. I'm seeing it on license plates and receipts everywhere. And I tell my mom, like, this is so crazy. What in the world is going on? What is my life? This is so strange. You know, I see the numbers 444 every day. 4 months go by. April 2nd of 2022, I'm walking upstairs in my house. I feel this intense pain in my chest. This pain knocks the wind out of me. I'm trying not to get emotional now thinking about this pain. It was the worst thing I'd ever felt in my entire life. I had never felt a pain. It was almost like physical pain mixed with emotional pain, mixed with spiritual pain, mixed with my heart being ripped out my chest. I fell to my knees and I screamed. I've never screamed. I'm not a loud person. You may not be able to tell, but I'm not. But I screamed like someone was physically doing something to me. I screamed and I cried and I screamed until I lost my voice. And then the next day, my mom gets into an accident. 4/8/22 at 4:44 p.m. Y'all remember I was seeing 444 for 4 months before. I had the dream that my mom passed. And then my grandma comes to me 1 year before, consoling me, hugging me, telling me everything is going to be okay. And my mom passes away on 4/8/22. She takes her last breath at 4:44 p.m. And it just hit me today, like, sometimes I think all of this is a coincidence, but then I'm like, there has to be something greater to this. And now I spend my days telling people the same thing that my grandmother told me. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
This is really actually like such a sad story, but it's just like, to me, it is so incredible how, again, like dreams, it's like, I genuinely believe that dreams tend to mean things. Like dreams can sometimes just be dreams, like just random things that your brain spits out while you're asleep. But I also definitely think that sometimes we can like essentially predict things. There are things that people are trying to tell us who are on the other side. We can contact like different timelines. I definitely think that there are so many possibilities of things that can happen while we are in a dream state. And I definitely do not think that the numbers she was seeing repeated, 444 specifically, which actually is my angel number. I actually just got that tattooed behind my ear. Because it is my angel number, and it also, a 4 just in general has a very special place in my heart, but it also is the angel number of spiritual protection. And I definitely don't think that that is a coincidence. I feel like it was some kind of a message saying that she will still be spiritually protected. And, you know, I mean, God, I can't imagine losing my mom. I'm sure that would probably be like the hardest thing that she's ever had to go through. But the fact that her grandma's, you know, coming in and telling her like something bad's gonna happen, but it's okay. And then she keeps seeing 444, which means she's protected. I think it was all just a message and a way of knowing that like her mom's not okay, obviously, on this plane of existence, but her mom's okay, and her mom's gonna be looking over her and with her grandma. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to like look on the bright side of that situation. I guess it's not really the point of me showing this to you. That situation is bad, and I really like, my thoughts and prayers are with her, because that is a tough thing to go through. But I think, again, like the whole point of this is just, you know, synchronicities, and I definitely think that this is a good example of how things can just come to you and try and send you a message while you are kind of spiritually open in the state of dreaming. Definitely kind of a sad one, but I think it has important information to offer as well. Our next TikTok is with the user Liney D. Terrace, and she shows us a security footage of paranormal activity that is happening to her while her and her kids sleep at night.
So I wasn't sure how I was going to tell anybody about this, but my house is haunted, and I'm going to show you the surveillance because we bought a camera today, and today's the first day we put it up, and immediately we caught shit being thrown at us. Now let me run you down what you're looking at here, and I'm going to zoom the camera in for you. But basically what you're looking at is my bedroom. My bed is a queen size bed. It has a canopy that I just recently bought to put over the bed, and I put that canopy over the bed because shit keeps getting thrown at us, especially while we're sleeping. And that is like a piss off, like a shoe got thrown at my head. You have no idea how irritating it is to try to sleep and a hat or a shoe or whatever gets thrown at me. Now, for some reason, at 3 in the morning, and we all sleep in my room now because I want my children to be safe with me. So they're all sleeping in my bed with me. There's 4 people in that bed right now. And again, like I said, I'm going to zoom in. But for some reason, the kids start to like shuffle. My daughter starts to shuffle, then my son starts to shuffle. And right there, something gets thrown at us. And at first I didn't realize that it was actually 2 things that got thrown at us. But I'll zoom in and you'll be able to see what the hell. There's me waking up. Alright, here's the close-up. See, we're sleeping. You can see me asleep. Just falling asleep. It always throws things right when I'm just about to fall asleep. I can't believe I'm calling it, but whatever the hell it is. Oh shit, I should probably... well, I guess I'll tell you guys the layout here. You're about to see my daughter's knees first. She starts to shuffle around in bed. The clip is about 1 minute and 28 seconds, but the surveillance runs right through my phone. It's wicked. So as soon as something happens, I like pulled out the phone, screen recorded it, and yada yada yada. But just give it a moment here. I've never done this before, uploading a friggin' video like this, so I'm not exactly structured. Alright, there's my daughter. She starts to like stir around, and when she got herself comfortable, she kind of like put her feet up against my son, which I think kind of woke him up a bit. So now his hands start going, and his knees raise up right there. But it's almost like her foot is like kind of in his knee. And then after that, something gets thrown. Bam! Right there. And you can see my head on the other side. It shook the bed when it hit me. And I immediately looked over in the direction, because I wasn't fully asleep yet. And then I pulled my phone out immediately. I'm like, what the hell is this?
First thing I'd like to say is that is crazy that she had to get like a canopy because things are so frequently thrown at her. I would be so mad. Like, I would be furious if that were me. Like, are you kidding me? You're like making me spend money on something to protect myself because you're throwing things at me in my sleep? That would infuriate me. I would be so mad. But like, that's so crazy that... And it's so interesting to me how everyone kind of like stirs at the same time. And then it's just this thing that gets chucked at her. Obviously she caught it on camera because she has the security cameras, but that's so crazy to me. I'm not gonna lie, when I see these things, it makes me wonder like, what made someone put up security cameras? Like, is it just, you know, to have the peace of mind of if anything ever happens, like someone breaking in wise, that it's caught on camera? Or do they put them up because of paranormal activity, or like, what's the situation? I don't know. Personally, like, I have this fear of someone hacking my security cameras and like watching me while I sleep. I at one point had a security camera when I lived with roommates to watch my dog Oscar when I was out of the house, just to make sure he was okay, because I would lock him up in my room because sometimes people have a tendency to leave the door open and not think about the fact that there's a dog in the house. So he'd have to be locked up in my room, and I'd have a camera there to watch him, but anytime I come home, I'd flip it to face the wall because I was convinced someone was going to hack my security camera and watch me. So, I don't know, I just like, it's so interesting to me how people have these security cameras up and like are able to catch all these things because of it. But it's like, I always wonder how they got to that point. Like, what made them decide to do that? And have they thought of the fact that someone can hack it and watch you? If they have, like, what made them like outweigh that fear to like actually keep it up 24/7? I think it's very interesting, and like, I think security cameras are great in this day and age because we can catch, obviously, traditional like bad guys and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to catch because we have so many security cameras everywhere. But even like in the home sense, that we can catch more paranormal activity and things that we wouldn't be able to catch on camera without them. Makes me wonder about, you know, the scary human aspect of that as well. Lots of thoughts on this video, and it just kind of like opened up a whole can of worms in my head. But let me know what you guys think of this one. Our next TikTok's for the user UrbexSXPH. It's a very quick TikTok where they show us some creepy things that they found in an abandoned house. That's pretty weird. It's very like Dungeness to me. Honestly, like for some reason it's kind of giving Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney. Very creepy. Not a place that I'd really want to be. I wonder like where this was. Maybe it was like an old-timey building and was like a dungeon. Like there's no context to where this is and the time period of maybe where it could have been from. I don't know, like it looks like very old dungeon-y vibes for sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very weird. And I would imagine if someone, not that I'm saying you should, because do not mess with Ouija boards around here, but if someone took a Ouija board there, I bet you'd catch something pretty interesting. Our final TikTok of the video is with the user It'sLocky249. And speaking of Ouija boards, we have a Ouija board caused haunting being talked about in this video.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
So I'm going to do my best to tell this story in a somewhat cohesive manner. I was raised Mormon, so that does play a part in this. And just for some context, my family, hundreds and hundreds of years back, were traveling exorcists. So weird shit just has happened to my family forever, like for centuries. So that just kind of some background into this. So I was 21 on my Mormon mission, which, for those of you who don't know, traditionally you go for 2 years, go wherever they tell you to, and you just are there talking about Jesus to people. It's the whole thing. So I was in Colorado Springs, which particularly security Whitefield area, which is a subset of the Army base there that we were also proselytizing to, that we kind of covered in our area. But we had one family that was pretty interesting. They were a little weird, but you know, looking back on it now, they just were kind of strange. But we're at home in bed, my companion and I. I think it was like 9:30, 10. It was dark, nighttime out. We were going to sleep. Phone rings, and we're like, we'll call him back in the morning. It can't be that important. So phone rings again. And I'm like, hey man, maybe we should answer the phone. Phone rings again, and my companion answers it. And he's like talking to whomever's on the other end. I don't know at this point. And he says, get up, we gotta go deal with something. And I'm like, cool. So we're in the car on the way there, and he explains what they explained to him, which is there's something going on in their house. Cabinet doors are slamming shut, doors are flying open, windows are opening, like it's a whole like poltergeist situation. So we get there, and we park across the street. So the house is over here, street, we're parking this way. And looking at the house, it is pitch black, no lights are on, which you would expect for 10 o'clock at night, but they had told us to come. So we're like, okay, cool. We get out of the car, and just looking at the place, you could kind of feel it. Like people talk about in horror movies, like you can feel when something's off. So you could totally tell that like something was wrong, and it just felt dark. So as we're crossing the street, my companion's like, I can't go in there. And he was half Maori, half Tongan, I believe. So he's, 6'4", 250, big motherfucker. And he's like, I can't do it. Can't go in there. Not gonna do it. You're on your own. So I'm like, well, I can't go in if you don't go. So we're in this. And as we got closer, it it was like the house was sucking in the light around it. It was unreasonably dark. The street lights around had all gone out. So we get up to the door. I knock on the door. Dad answers the door. And I'm like, hey, like, we'll take a look. When we got there, the front windows were all open. And as we get into the house on the main floor, because it was like main floor, kind of a half second story and then a basement. So the main floor, the rear windows are also open. So there's like this pretty strong cross breeze. And it's spring, late spring, early summer. So like nights are warm. It was freezing cold in there. I had like the Mormon magic underwear, my white shirt, tie, and like a thick sweater, and I was still cold. And the whole family was just mom and dad and their son are all huddled in the living room around like flashlights and candles and stuff, shivering, like wrapped in blankets, whole 9 yards. So my first question is, has anybody been messing with anything like witchcraft, you know, devil worship kind of stuff, whatever? And they're like, no, of course not. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. So kind of walk around. My companion, it stays in the living room with the mom and the son, because he just is not ready to deal with this. So the dad and I are walking around main floor, like you can feel something is off. And as we're walking around the upstairs, like it goes up to a door. So there's a door at the top of the stairs. That door slams shut just while we're walking around, which kind of scared the hell out of me, obviously. But I'm like, okay, we got to go in the basement, see what's going on. So as soon as we set foot on the stairs into the basement, you could we could see our breath. It was so cold. And we get down there and it just, you could feel something was wrong. So I'm kind of poking around, and I very much believe in like psychic impressions and that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of like listening for like, do I hear anything or feel anything? And I get this super strong feeling to check the son's room, because he lives in the basement. There's like a living room, his room, a storage room, and then like laundry. So his room, like if the stairs end here, his room is just to the right. So we go in there, and I'm like listening, like, okay, anything else? Have his dad check under the bed. I was not about to do that. Nothing there. But I get this very strong feeling to check in the closet. So I go in the closet, and buried under the stuff at the bottom of his closet is a Ouija board, and I can't think of the like plinth thing that you use for that, compass, whatever. So I pull it out, show the dad, and I'm like, hey, I think this is your problem. If your son started messing with this and didn't properly close things off, like that could open your home to all kinds of things. So we take it upstairs, and there's generally a process by which you need to destroy Ouija boards, generally by burning them. So I have them start the fireplace up, throw it in the fireplace. We do the whole like Mormon blessing thing, which is basically get everybody together and pray. And I do the whole thing of like, spirits aren't welcome here. We cast you out, leave these people alone. And as the second we're done, it's like we say amen, prayer's over, the power, oh, sorry, I missed this. The power in the house does not work at this point. The lights do not come on except in the basement. All the lights in the house come back on. The street lights outside come back on. Everything just immediately goes back to normal. So we're there for a little while, and like I talked to the kid. I'm like, hey man, you really shouldn't be messing with this stuff if you're not really informed on what to do. But we left, and as soon as we got outside, my companion is like in a cold sweat the whole time. And he's like, I don't know how we just handled that, but this is the craziest thing that ever happened to me. And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, not the first time I've dealt with like spirits and stuff of that nature, but that's a story for a different time.
Actually, after this video, I really would love to hear more about Mormon exorcisms and I guess just like paranormal activity in the Mormon community. That is a topic I've really never heard much about until this video, and I think it would be very interesting to explore. So, color me inspired from this one. But that is insane that as soon as they burned the board, which I'll get into, but as soon as they burned the board, the lights came back on. the power just came back on. The fact that the street lights were off because of whatever was happening in this house, and it just boop, came back on as soon as they burned the board. Crazy. Like, obviously that was the cause. However, I've always heard that it is bad to burn the board. I've always heard that you're supposed to like break it up into 4 pieces and bury it in separate locations so it can't like come back together. I thought that if you burn the board, it releases anything that may have been in there, which I will say, now that I say that, obviously that's not really how, it's not like there's something in the board, it's like something using the board to communicate through you. But it still kind of does make sense to me that like if you burn the board, you could be like releasing things. So I don't know, that's just what I've always heard, is that you should never burn a Ouija board, that you should dissect it and bury it in different locations. But you know, hey, if that method worked and nothing bad happened, good for them. That's all that matters. If I haven't said it a million times, I will continue saying this a million more times if I have to, until everyone stops touching Ouija boards. Do not play with Ouija boards. Like, it just never really seems to end well. Makes for a good story time, as I always say, but it never seems to end well. And I really don't want any of you guys to be haunting your houses like I did as a child, or putting yourselves in danger, or families in danger, or, you know, just getting an attachment and causing issues for yourself. Like, no one needs that, and I really don't want that for anyone. So please don't mess with Ouija boards. Anyway, that is today's anti-Ouija board PSA. And that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. I will pop a couple of video suggestions on the screen here for you in a second. Please click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on my post notifications so you would never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please check out my Instagram and TikTok for a spooky special effects makeup. Right now, I am doing an American Horror Story inspired makeup series, so you're not going to want to miss that. And you can have me on Snapchat. I vlog my days over there sometimes. I am also opening up an email account for you guys to submit your paranormal ghost stories for me to share on this channel. I'm going to put the email up on the screen here for you, and it'll also be down in the description box with all of my other links. So if you have any scary ghost stories you'd like to share with me, please send them to that email, and once I have enough, I will make a video sharing your guys' scary ghost stories. I think that is the end of my spiel. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.